rules for appeal basically, Eric, I believe you're familiar with which states 2 minutes for the house, 5 minutes for the police officer present, 10 minutes for ABQ, 10 minutes for the IRO, and 5 minutes for your rebuttal. Understood?
Yep, okay. I have some handouts for the IRO, for the commissioners.
Wait. I guess we had reached out to you earlier this week to see if there's anything else you wanted to introduce, and I was under the impression that there was not.
Mr. Aronson has handed me a stack of documents. Mr. Aronson has handed both myself and the two commissioners present one is the original document, and then pages from the appeal record which the commission had received.
Okay.
And the original document.
No, I am reading it.
Looks like written of his statement, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, so it's just basically what I don't know if I'm it's basically what I planned on saying here today, and some pages from the IRO's investigative file, which I wasn't sure you all had or not. So that's all this is. There's nothing new here. Is that all right?
Okay. Very good. Go ahead, proceed, please.
Okay. Being that I filed my original complaint in this case on October 2nd, 2012, and I now stand here nearly 2 years later, and due to what I can only call foot dragging by the IRO and to some extent the POC itself, I realize that no discipline will be handed out by the chief even if I were to win this appeal. I had planned to aggressively defend my allegations, but after realizing that nothing will be done, and after rereading the DOJ's findings concerning the current IRO and the weak police oversight structure of this commission, I see that it would be an exercise in futility. So what I have done is I have given you gentlemen and the IRO copies of my appeal statement and copies of the pertinent pages from her investigative file, and I simply ask for you to come to your own conclusions. However, I do think it's important that people know that the IRO knew early on in her investigation that I did have a valid complaint. And by this, I refer you to page 30 of the investigative file, where on November 1st of 2012, which was roughly a month after I filed this complaint, someone inside APD knew that this was a repeated problem and was asking for suggestions that anyone might have to rectify the situation. Also on pages 25 and 28, dated December 28, 2012, where the IRO's investigator found that the officer in question violated New Mexico Criminal State Statute 66318, which is reinforced by Statute 66615, and that this information is completely missing from the IRO's findings letters to me dated December 13th, 2013, nearly a year later, that you will find on pages marked 49, 50, 51, where she exonerated Officer S of any wrongdoing. There is no doubt in my mind that if the IRO and APDIA had dinged Officer S on these criminal law violations, it would have had a cascading effect, and that all of my allegations of APD practices and policy violations would have been validated, which would have caused disciplinary actions for not only Officer S, but for her chain of command leading all the way up the ladder to the chief himself. Saying all of this, I plan to move forward, and if nothing else, I would like to know if this situation has been rectified, and if it is now being properly managed and monitored by an assigned city employee. If it has, then this complaint was, at the least, effective. If it has not, has this been done, Ms. Hammer? And if it has, I ask that I be provided the information. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so that's that concludes your portion of it, and, not that there's any. Yeah, okay. Next speaker then.
Acting Lieutenant Madrano will present the presentation from ABQ.
Okay.
Commissioner Peterson, Commissioner Barker, Commissioner Foster. I'm Acting Lieutenant Madrano for the Alcohol Department's Internal Affairs Unit. I was not provided the paperwork by Mr. Harrison with regards to his appeal reference this particular investigation, but I can comment on with regards to whether or not this was rectified and what procedures have been placed with regards to this particular situation involving temp tags. On October 11th, 2013, one of our deputy chiefs sent a memorandum to our chief of police at the time with particular concerns on the temp tags and the independent review officer's concerns about it. The deputy chief agreed that the department should do a better job of ensuring that our vehicles are driven with a valid temp tag or license plate. The deputy chief spoke with the fleet manager for our department. He was then informed that there was an issue with issuing license plates on the MVD side. The deputy chief then spoke with a representative from the MVD. It was decided at this time that if there is a delay in receiving a license plate from MVD, then the fleet manager will have the authority to go into a system with the approval of MVD to issue 2 additional temp tags totaling 90 days with regards to having a valid temp tag and driving. But it is their hope from the MVD that it will be streamlined faster. That way the additional temp tags do not have to be issued. The actual representative from MVD advised that they were looking to streamline it to make it quicker and within a week issuing a license plate for the department. The deputy chief then had the sergeant from Ops Review to prepare what was information given to him to be placed into the SOP as a revision. Now, those SOP revisions state when issued a new vehicle, personnel responsible for ensuring that a temporary tag is valid and will notify operations review for issuance of a new temporary tag or license plate prior to the expiration date. Operations review will ensure personnel receive their new license plate or replacement temporary tag in a timely manner. When personnel are notified to pick up a license plate, it is the responsibility of the personnel assigned to the vehicle to ensure they retrieve and sign for the license plate prior to the vehicle's temporary tag expiring. So the deputy chief was able to come up with a solution with the fleet manager and MVD personnel to ensure that our vehicles are registered and are able to be driven on the road. It's also ensured that within the SOP that it is the responsibility of the officer who has a vehicle that is waiting a license plate or does have a temp tag, that they continue to advise operations review with regards to whether it's going to expire or when they're going to receive their license plate. So for Mr. Harrison, this is an SOP revision, so our SOP is online, so he'll be able to retrieve that from the internet. I can stand for any questions from the commissioners.
Lieutenant, and Mr. Aronson, I'm under the impression that your appeal is in relation to the officer as to to whether the officer was in fact operating in accordance with the SOP. Is that correct? So I guess I'm missing it. Why are we discussing issues outside of the fact that the officer either violated the SOP or did not violate the SOP? If that is the problem, and this officer was in violation of state law, my question is why didn't somebody call the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department to come down and issue a citation to that officer for that information? But the issue that we have is that, as I understand it, is in relation to this officer, whether this officer did or did not act in accordance with the SOP. Is that correct with my understanding? Or am I...
The original complaint by Mr. Aronson filed a complaint against the individual officer and Chief Ray Schultz, who is no longer an employee of the Albuquerque Police Department. So we have no jurisdiction over Chief Schultz.
I'm sorry, Ira, I'm not hearing you in relation to that old ages stuff these days.
Mr. Aronson's complaint was about the individual officer, Officer S, and Chief Ray Schultz, who is no longer an employee of the Albuquerque Police Department.
Thank you.
Two things. Commissioner Foster just asked again, speaking in the microphone about me. And then I guess the second thing is, from Mr. Harrison's, what he had to say up front, that it sounded to me as though he's no longer appealing it, and so the futile, according to him. So if we're not actually appealing it, I guess we're more or less just discussing it. So the procedure is that assumes that ABQ spoke, Ms. Hammer, the IRO has 10 minutes if you wish to.
Chair, I would just ask that it be clarified that in fact Mr. Aronson is withdrawing his appeal from Mr. Aronson.
Mr. Harrison, did I misunderstand that? Or this is an act of futility? Are you not appealing it? Are we just kind of discussing it?
Yes, that's true, and yes, and I would like to see this discussed, and I'm glad to hear from ABDIA that something has been taken care of here. I'm a little surprised by all of this information because back in mid-April this year, I filed an IPA request for this type of information, and I was told that there was nothing. There was no documentation, no inter-office memorandums, no emails, no discussions with the motor vehicle department, nothing, absolutely nothing. I got 0 pieces of paper. So I'm a little surprised that I'm hearing this now. So yeah. And oh, by the way, this wasn't just against the officer and Chief Ray Schultz. This also had to do with her chain of command, which is written in the SOPs. The SOPs state that that they cannot afford a subordinate to violate any law, state law, federal law, local law, whatever. So this included her entire chain of command. I just want to clarify that.
Well, let me ask for clarification also, Mr. Harrison. So you're saying that you have withdrawn your appeal?
Yes, I think it's an exercise of futility at this point because so much time has passed, which I don't understand why. When the information was readily available within 60 days, 45 days that are in the investigative file that shows I had a valid complaint, and it took a year before it was brought here, and decided that the officer was exonerated of everything, And then I was given this letter on December 13th of 2013, over a year later. And then I've been shuffled around by the IRO by not giving me the investigative file in a timely fashion, and then by this commission itself because of this thing or the other for the last, well, here we are, what is this, August? 8 months. So I think it's futile. It's futile. Nothing. I can't see you guys bringing it. I won another appeal at one time, and it too was drug out to some extent, and there was no discipline done to any of those officers. So I don't expect there to be any discipline done here. It's futile.
Mr. Erickson, so when did you make that decision to withdraw your appeal? Because we still have it on our agenda as an appeal.
This morning, I asked for some more clarifications from the IRO, and she promised me this was July 15th. We had a meeting. She promised to get back to me with those clarifications by the 5th of this month. I got clarifications 2 days ago.
So this is in fact a exercise in public forum?
Yes.
Not an appeal?
Yes.
Okay, well, you guys are obviously I've been in receipt of your emails and discussions with the IRO. I recognize your frustration and the time it's taken to get to this point, but it sounds as though progress has been made, albeit sometime later. So,
Well, may I just say one more thing? Well, again, I did a IPRA request around the 18th of April of this year asking for any information as far as what the department went through with the motor vehicle department to get this situation rectified. I was told there was nothing, no inter-office emails, memos, changes to SOPs, absolutely nothing. And now here today, I'm hearing a different story. So I'm very disappointed on what's going on here. An IPRA request is law, and that's serious. That's serious business we're talking about here. Now, as I said, I would like to be afforded. I'm pleased to hear that this was effective and that changes have been made. But I think that I did do an IPRA request, and I have been stymied, if you can say that, for the last darn near 2 years on this thing. And I think I should be afforded the information on how all this went together, on how the SOP was changed, and how the department is now operating with the motor vehicle department. Thank you.
well,
Mr. Erickson?
in reference to the glass half full, I think we'll go with the fact that you're pleased to see that there has been some changes made, and not go with the fact that you're disappointed in the time to get here. I think now that since this is no longer an appeal and it's just a discussion, I think this will all be captured in a minute. I think the information can be given to you after the meeting. So I'll call that a win.
All right, I call that a win-win myself. And I'm glad that the officer isn't really getting dinged for this, because it's not really her fault. You know, I mean, what choice did she have except to not drive her car for a month and walk, I guess. And then, of course, there is other information in this investigative file that there was as many as 21 cars being driven that way. So this is a serious issue at the time. And I have a feeling that's why it was drug out for so long, because it was basically a Pandora's box. So anyway, I appreciate it, and let's just call this a win-win. And I would really look forward to getting the information. The IRO has my address and phone number. Thank you very much.